Hi everybody, welcome to the Evangelist Nick Garrett channel. We're in the middle of reading the church history by Eusebius of Nicomedia, and it dawned on me that I wanted to tell you, just so you could get excited and passionate about this, about some of these characters, because, much like today, these people had strengths and weaknesses just like us, and there was a colorful cast of characters surrounding the first 3 centuries of Christianity, particularly the character of Eusebius of Nicomedia. He was quite a unique guy. Grew up poor, but very educated. And he's one of those people, it's never the great, brave Christian martyrs that end up writing the histories of the church. All the greatest, bravest, most outspoken martyrs got just that, martyred. But Eusebius was a guy who knew how to ride that fence between the secular world he lived in, the changing Roman Empire, and this new Christian faith in a very interesting way. He was close friends with Constantine. Let me give you a few brief pictures so that we can piece all this together. During the late 200s and early 300s, the average everyday Christian believed that Jesus Christ, yes, was the Son of God, that he was divine, that there was a Father and a Son, but there was elements that made it clear that everybody seemed to believe the Son on some level was subservient to the Father, but that he was divine. An interesting individual named Arius. Arius was from Alexandria, one of the catechetical schools there. He was a presbyter who studied under Alexander of Alexandria initially. But he was very popular, and his teachings were popular. And as the early Christians debated the ideas from the books that would end up being canon or Bible, he asked interesting questions like, well, how could Jesus Christ be co-eternal like God? How was Jesus, from the very beginning, timeless? Was he co-eternal? Was he timeless with the Father? Those types of questions were the ones that he asked. And as the Roman Empire formed, what happened was Constantine fought a battle at Milvian Bridge. He formed an alliance with Licinius, the Eastern Roman emperor, eventually went to battle with him, and became emperor of a unified Roman Empire. But as he tried to unify Rome, he noticed that this growing bureaucratic aspect of the Christian faith was splintering over these questions, right? They wanted to know once and for all, was Jesus Christ divine? Was he God in some form? Because this was the assertion, but they couldn't quite figure out how. They couldn't quite make it work. You had Gnostics who said, it's way more mysterious than we'll ever understand, but they needed to find a way to articulate this and create nomenclature, words, and definitions so that it could be taught and understood. From Constantine's perspective, he had also the state aspect to consider, the secular responsibilities, the responsibilities to the pagan deities of his time. This guy Eusebius of Nicomedia makes his way into the court of Constantine as a trusted ally. In fact, he shared Christian beliefs with Constantine, which, believe it or not, were the views of this presbyter Arius, who said, look, yes, Jesus is the Son of God. Jesus is divine, but Jesus is not co-equal and co-eternal with God the Father, with God, right? At some point, God had to have created the Son. This was the gauntlet that was laid down. So Constantine says, look, this is tearing apart the empire. Here's my solution. He sends out about 2,800 invitations to Christians all over the realm, archbishops, bishops. Please come to my summer palace in Nicaea in the east. We're going to resolve this once and for all. We're going to talk. We're going to figure it out. That's the groundwork for this, right? So at the council itself, I want to paint a picture for you of what was there, because from the 280s up to 325 when this council took place, if you have in your mind that it was people like you and I that lived in a world like you and I with Facebook and we're posting what our beliefs are, and I'm tweeting out from the council, right? Hey, I'm in Nicaea for the council, oh yeah, selfie. No, the people in this room had undergone some heinous persecutions, and the way persecutions worked for the 30 years leading up to that first council of Nicaea were thus, like, you get your ear cut off, you get a slash on your face, you get burned. So out of that 2,800 invitations that Constantine sent out, about 318 showed up. It was really more like 280. So between 280 and 318 show up. And here's what happens. Arius makes his argument. He says Jesus Christ is heterousios, a different substance than God the Father. Yes, he's the Son. Yes, he's divine. Yes, he's worthy of adoration. Yes, he's worthy of worship. But he's not God in that sense. The other side, under Alexander of Alexandria and his star pupil Athanaseus, really, and if you get a chance to read Athanasius' work on the Trinity, I do believe it is the cleanest, most easy to understand writing on the Trinity that exists. It is beautiful. He says, no. Jesus Christ is homoousios, the same substance as God, consubstantial with the Father. Arius says no, heterousios. The Athanasian camp says no, homoousios. Another Eusebius, but not of Nicomedia, of Caesarea. You can see how this can get so confusing, but Eusebius of Caesarea tweets out, he says, look, these guys over here saying heterousios, and homeboy on that side put on his Facebook page that they're calling Jesus Christ homoousios, the same substance as God. So Eusebius of Caesarea raises his hand and says, no, how about homoiousios? This is a good compromise. You know what? And not only is it a good compromise, it is a foundation for our political theory in the West, political science. A and B, right, are in deadlock. Introduce C as a solution, right? That's where we get our modern political ideas. But no. In the end, homoousios wins. Arius and his few bishops that were with him are exiled, kicked out of the church. So, problem solved. The Trinity is orthodox. Well, not exactly, because it's not a Trinity. At the Council of Nicaea, they didn't do much with the Holy Spirit. If you read that first creed from the first Council of Nicaea, the Church Creed, all it says is, and we believe in the Holy Spirit. They hadn't really assigned it personhood yet. This council really dealt with, how is it that Jesus is divine? Now, a critic, a cynic, an agnostic, an atheist might say, look, the 300s AD, and they couldn't even figure out who they thought Jesus was. No, my friends. The Bible is this thick. These 14 volumes behind me were written in that first 300 years. And one of the biggest questions they were asking is not whether or not Jesus Christ was divine. They knew he was. They knew him and his presence was something unique in human history. The question was, how did it work? How was it that this happened? How do we define this? How do we put this in terms that the everyday people can understand for the purpose of evangelizing and sharing this good news like Jesus told us to do? That was the deal. But right after the council, right, we have the creed. We say anybody who says this heterousios is out of the church. He's homoousios, Jesus, same substance as God. Within a year, they've reversed their decision. They went and hunted down Athanaseus of Alexandria, and they exiled him, and Arius is back on top, and Arian Christianity is back on top. Listen, folks, the truth is it took centuries for this question about the Trinity to be resolved. And it was largely resolved through things like ecumenical councils and synods. Synods were regional meetings. Ecumenical councils were meant to represent the whole church. But even if we look back today and say, oh, the first council of Nicaea, yes, the first ecumenical council, 280 to 300 people showed up out of 2,800, and they made decisions for the entire church of the time. This is the type of stuff you were dealing with. In some ways, it was councils that came later. The first council of Constantinople, the council at Ephesus, the council of Chalcedon, hundreds of years later, after Rome had fallen, that they looked back, pieced all these things together, and developed the Orthodox Trinity that we believe today. So it's not a question of whether or not one is right and one is wrong. We're looking at what people believed 2,000 years ago, and we just want to be honest about it. Doesn't mean the Trinity's wrong. It doesn't mean Arius was wrong. That's what they determined back then, and it gave us the foundation, tradition, and heritage for what we believe about the Trinity today in Christianity. As the next video comes out, where I read chapter 2 of the Church History by Eusebius of Nicomedia, you're going to notice a few other things. During that first 300 years, the writers of that time realized that for Christianity to be credible, they wanted to make it appear as old as possible. They kind of hitched their wagon to Judaism, which is interesting given the disconnect. Remember, we read in chapter 1, the last video, about how the Jews were punished for what they had done to Jesus by having the Jerusalem destroyed in 70 AD. They saw the destruction of Jerusalem in divine terms, but they sure enough did. They wanted to hitch their wagon to the antique world, the world of antiquity, because it lent credibility to Christianity. And sure enough, it played out that way. What was the first thing that Peter does when given the opportunity to preach about Jesus Christ in the book of Acts? He preaches from the prophet Joel, ties it to the Old Testament. When Stephen the martyr gets in front of the Sanhedrin and has a chance to talk about Jesus Christ, what does he do? He ties it to the Old Testament by telling a narrative and saying, this was our Messiah, and you missed it, just like you killed the other prophets. Anyway, happy Wednesday morning. I am looking forward to talking to you soon. I'm loving my new equipment. I'm not held back by anything now, and please just be patient as I work out sound and audio and video, but you're going to start seeing a lot more great stuff from this channel. And we are going to continue talking about truth first Christianity in a post-Christian country and just tell me the truth about Christianity. But we're also working on a new documentary series called What Does It Look Like to Practice Christianity? God bless you, my friends. And as always, may your work today bear fruit.